With all the information on the internet these days, it's hard to know what actually helps you build muscle when it comes to nutrition. Do I need 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight? Should I eat a lot of carbs or should I avoid carbs altogether? What happens if you don't eat right after your workout? Well, all these questions and more will be answered in this video in a simple way for you to understand. First, let's get the things out of the way that don't matter at all. Now, some of these things you may have heard of, some of them you haven't. If you haven't heard of them, don't worry about them, but it's still good to know for when you do come across them. For those of you who have heard of these, then maybe we can get some things out of the way that aren't helping you at all. First, let's talk about mass gainers. Mass gainers are just a fancy protein shake that you don't need. They're a protein shake that also has carbohydrates in them, but the carbohydrates in them are pretty low quality, meaning they don't have a lot of nutrients or a lot of fiber to come along with them. And we could get our carbohydrates from better sources rather than these mass gainer shakes. If protein is something that you need to increase in the day, a protein shake is more than okay, but a mass gainer probably isn't gonna help you more than just eating regular food. That leads me to the next one, which is dirty bulking. Now, if you feel like you need to get in so many calories that you need a mass gainer, you might just be eating way too much. In order to gain muscle, many of us who are beginners actually just need to eat at maintenance and let our body recomp, meaning build muscle and lose fat at the same time, especially if we haven't been training that long. If we've been training for quite a while, these two processes become separate, meaning you have to go through phases of building muscle and then into phases of losing fat. But dirty bulking is not the solution. A lot of times we can do this by just eating slightly more. That way we can get in the energy that it requires in order to build muscle, but we don't need so much that we end up building all this additional fat. The real problem with that is on the back end of your bulk, you're gonna have to lose that fat if you wanna show the progress that you've made. Next is the anabolic window. There's a great study that was done by this guy named Brad Schoenfeld. He said that it's more of an anabolic garage door than it is an anabolic window, meaning you have a lot more time than you think you do. You don't need to be drinking a protein shake or eating something as soon as you leave the gym, maybe when you get home. But what I find for most of the clients I work with that works the best is just eating a meal within a reasonable amount of time. Presumably, if you ate a little snack beforehand and then you worked out for 45 minutes to an hour, it's probably almost time to have a meal in your day anyway. So just sticking a meal behind your workout works just fine. The next one is a supplement that I see a lot of people taking that just isn't doing anything for them. And that's BCAAs and EAAs, which stands for branched chain amino acids or essential amino acids. Essential amino acids also contain branched chain amino acids. Branched chain amino acids are more of a niche type of amino acid that is really helpful in building muscle. However, we get enough of this as long as you're eating enough protein in the day. So if you're hitting your protein number, which is an important factor we'll talk about later, then you're gonna be okay and you don't need to spend all the extra money to get in BCAAs or EAAs. Save your money, spend it somewhere that actually matters. There's one more thing I wanna talk about. I don't see it as often as these other things, but drinking protein shakes at night. You don't need to wake up in the middle of the night to drink a protein shake and go back to bed. Not only does this not matter if you're getting your protein in during the day, but this could be hurting your sleep if you are waking up in the middle of the night to drink something and potentially having to wake up again to go to the bathroom after slamming all that liquid. So I would say stay asleep, focus on your sleep, that's a lot more important, and get rid of those middle of the night protein shakes. Okay, this next category are things that kind of matter, like you don't have to worry about them right now, especially in the beginning stages of your journey, but maybe later on they become a little bit more important. But I wanna mention them because I think a lot of people focus on these things so early on that it detracts from all the other things that are more important that you could be focusing on immediately. So this list of things, push them off for the future, and then we can come back to them when they might matter a little bit more. The first of these things is meal timing. And I think this could incorporate both how you spread your meals throughout the day and your pre and post workout nutrition. At some point, this will matter, especially as you've gained more and more muscle, things come a lot slower and you really need to dial in. But when you're first starting, as long as you get in your calories and your macronutrients throughout the day, it doesn't really matter when you get them in. The best and most important thing is finding a way that you can be consistent with getting in all of your macros every day, which might turn into spacing your meals throughout the day, maybe having a couple high carbohydrate snacks throughout the day. but you don't need to really stress about when you're getting in your meals throughout the day at this point. The second thing is tracking your calories and your macros. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I'm a big proponent of tracking because I think it just teaches you so much about food that it's hard to learn any other way. It keeps you accountable, but the reality is that you don't need to track right off the bat. If you're just starting out your journey, yes, nutrition is super important, but I think the things that I'll talk about in the last section are gonna be way more impactful than knowing specifically how many calories and macronutrients you're getting in. But again, this will be important at some time. And of the things in this category, this is probably one of the first things I would focus on after you get those really important things down. The third one is the exact amount of carbohydrates and fat. Your protein number that you get in every day is actually pretty important, along with the amount of calories that you get in. The exact amount of carbohydrates and fat is kind of important at some amount. Like, you don't want to cut either of these out completely, and you don't want to be getting so much of one that it's hard to get in the other macronutrients, but to some degree, it doesn't really matter. And even when you dial in later down the road, being super 100% strict on these numbers is not something that's gonna be that impactful, but there are some strategies that we can use with carbohydrates and fat that may change some things, but again, they're just not really important at this stage. And the last one we'll talk about in this category is pre-workout. Look, if you've seen my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of caffeine because it's one of the most potent ergogenic aids, meaning it increases your performance in the moment more than most things. And caffeine is the most important ingredient in pre-workout. But pre-workouts themselves are expensive. They have a lot of ingredients that don't really do a whole lot until you've really dialed in a lot of other important things. So save your money. Don't necessarily buy pre-workout. You can use cheaper sources of caffeine early on that might actually benefit you a good amount. Even just black coffee is probably my go-to, or some green tea or black tea is perfectly fine. Try to do with the least amount of caffeine as you can so that you don't build too much of a tolerance, and you're gonna be okay, and you're gonna save a lot of money rather than going out and buying these expensive pre-workouts that aren't doing a whole lot more than just the caffeine that's in them. Now let's talk about the things that actually do matter when your goal is to build muscle. The first thing is your calorie intake. This is the most important factor. Getting in the right amount of calories is not only going to give you the energy that you need to work out, but muscle building is what we call an endergonic process. And that's a fancy way of just saying it takes extra energy to go through the process that is building muscle. So we need to supply our body a little bit more energy than we're used to in order to add on this additional process. It's not gonna be a crazy amount more. Typically, I'm starting my clients either at maintenance if they have a little bit of extra body fat, probably maybe 20% or above body fat. They just are gonna stay at maintenance, and that's gonna be it. For some people who are a little bit leaner or maybe skinnier, they may need to add some additional calories. But again, it's gonna be between 300 and 500 calories per day, which may seem like a lot on surface level, and for some people it may be a lot. But for a lot of people, that's just a small meal, a couple snacks throughout the day, or maybe just slightly bigger portion sizes throughout the day that adds up to that over the course of an entire day. The next thing is adequate protein intake. So do you need a gram per pound? No, that's overkill a lot of the times. For some of my clients, especially people who tend to eat a little bit more vegan or vegetarian or eat a lot of lower quality sources of protein, I may go pretty close to a gram per pound. But for most people, I'm going between 0.7 and 0.9 grams per pound, just so we can get enough protein, but we don't need to go overkill. Especially if we're eating super high quality sources of protein, what we typically think of as protein sources, things like meats, dairy, and soy. We're gonna be getting in plenty of protein at that range, so we don't need as much. And that'll leave a little bit more room for carbohydrates, which help improve our performance, or fats, which honestly are delicious. Look, the nutrition things that I've talked about in this video, if you follow those two important things, ignore a lot of the noise, and really dial in your workout program so that you're challenging yourself, then you're gonna see so much gains. It just will take a little bit of patience to really get you to where you wanna be. Don't fall for all the gimmicks out there or all the extra stuff that people say you have to do, because it's not true. All it takes is consistency, hard work, in time. And if you want to know more about what's important for a workout program, then check out this video that I just made where I walk through exactly what you need in a workout program in order to be successful building muscle. And I'll see you over there.